Rev it up and welcome to Cars Yeah, show number 2508. This show today is going to be very cool because it's all about finding people jobs in the automotive world and making it simple. That's what it's all about. Be prepared to be inspired.
This is Cars Yeah, where you'll enjoy interviews with inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Mark Green is here to provide you with a fuel injection of automotive inspiration. So get in, sit down, buckle up, and get ready for a wild ride here on Cars Yeah.
Hello, inspiring automotive enthusiasts, and welcome to Cars Yeah. Today I'm back in Philadelphia with a very special returning guest by the name of Jeff Nowak. Jeff, welcome back to Cars Yeah. Do you have any gear, and are you ready to release the clutch?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Good to have you back. And the reason I'm having Jeff back on the show today is he's on a new venture that I think is extremely important with our automotive hobby. And we'll explain all that in a minute. But before we start, could you share one little thing that maybe people don't know about you, Jeff?
I'd say the biggest thing people don't know about me in the classic and exotic car world is just actually who I am.
Okay. Who are you, Jeff?
Yeah.
Who are you?
I'm on... People in this industry certainly say I'm on the younger side of it.
Okay. Yeah, well,
Right?
everybody's on the younger side of me these days, so.
I have a long way to go and a lot more people. So I don't think I'm to the point yet where I can say something special people don't know about me. I need to get to know you first.
Okay, there you go. Awesome. Well, we're going to get to know Jeff well. Now, if those of you who've been listening for a long time will remember, back in 2021, his show was then show number 1976. So it's been a few years, but not a lot of years since we spoke. But Jeff, like I said, reached out to me and said, hey, I'm doing something new that I think your listeners will want to hear. So let me give you a little more formal introduction and we'll dive right into it. Jeff Nowak is the founder of Classic Car Jobs, a platform for dedicated marketers that help shops, private collectors, museums, and storage facilities to find specialty mechanics to employ. They are connecting mechanics and opportunities in the niche world of classics and exotic cars with a deep passion for classic cars, particularly 50s and 60s European sports cars. I love those too. Jeff has turned his love for these timeless vehicles into a mission to support the industry by helping skilled professionals find their place in the specialized field. His expertise and enthusiasm for classic cars drive the vision behind Classic Car Jobs, making it a go-to resource for both those wanting to work and those needing employees. We'll be back in just a moment, but first a word from our sponsors, so give them a little love, and then we'll be right back, so buckle up. Are you ready to take charge of your financial future? Then let me introduce you to Capitalize Your Finances. It's an online course designed to empower you with the knowledge and tools for mastering your money. This course will help you lay out the ins and outs of budgeting, the importance of emergency funds, investing strategies, and how to plan for a secure retirement. All this presented by financial planner Chris Paniotu. Chris has developed this course to help you effectively navigate your world of finance with confidence. Stop stressing about money and start taking control. Enroll in Capitalize Your Finance online course today and pave your way to financial success. To learn more, go to capitalizepodcast.com/courses, or better yet, go to the Cars Yeah website, show notes page for today's show, and click on the link under Capitalize Your Finances. You'll be glad you did. Do it today. For several years now, you've heard me talk about Linkage Magazine. I've been a subscriber since the start. Their talented and creative team brings you a spectacular publication and website that shares the automotive passion from a worldwide perspective. Linkage is about driving, restoring, collecting, and first-hand experience at collector car auctions and more. They bring you real-world values plus rational, experienced opinions on the current markets. They cover the automotive world and the people who share our passions. And Linkage Magazine has grown, mailing you 6 issues annually. Join me on this journey with Linkage. They're geared for the automotive life. You can subscribe at linkagemag.com. Today's vehicles are essentially computers on wheels, and it takes more than a wrench and oil to keep them humming. That's why Cars Yeah supports TechForce Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to driving tomorrow's workforce of skilled technicians forward. Techs keep our cars, trucks, airplanes, and fleets rolling. Yet there's a massive tech shortage because many young people don't know it's no longer a blue-collar job. Today, it's a new-collar career. It involves computers, technology. It's in high demand. You get paid really well, and you can live and work anywhere in the country. I know you're passionate about cars, trucks, and motorcycles, and you can help pass that passion on to the next generation of techs so our rides keep rolling down the road. Visit techforce.org today and learn how. So, when you were on the show before, you were doing something a little different. Can you talk? I want to go back in time a little bit and talk a little bit about that and then how that helped you transition into classic car jobs. And I'll remind listeners, you go back and listen to all the past guests on Cars Yeah. So if you're taking an across the country road trip, maybe you'll get through 2,508. I'm not sure. I have a few people who always ping me and say, hey, I'm on number so-and-so. I'm going to get there, but I'm only in the middle of the country. So let's go back to your previous role, and you may still be doing some of that. And then how did that transition?
Yeah, so really, in like 2022, I started a marketing agency that specifically helped classic car shops. It was called Macchina Speciale. And I did some great work. I helped launch a few storage facilities with people. I helped a few car brands. I built a few websites for people that were, selling Fiat 500s and other Italian cars. Just anyone I could help, as long as they worked on cool cars, I would work with them. So I actually got recruited by a company to go work on the athlete sponsorships. So I kind of just had to leave it behind. I still worked with the clients that I had, and I still speak with them and work with them when they need me today. But I couldn't dedicate the time to making sales, just maintaining what I currently had. So, sometimes in life you have to make a choice based on monetary decisions.
Yep.
And
yeah.
Working with athletes at the time was one of those decisions I had to make.
Yeah. Well, was that fun for you?
No, I enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong.
Uh-huh.
Right. Where most people would love to go to an NFL game, I'd rather go to a dirt
track
midget race.
yeah,
a dirt track.
I
and
got
watch
you.
a race, or go to the Speedway America or something like that, right? But I enjoy just being on athletes, learning a lot about how sponsorship. That was definitely the most beneficial thing, was learning how these race teams take on sponsorships from that role.
Yeah, tough thing too, because finding sponsors for anything, podcasts, racing, whatever, especially these days, the first thing everyone wants to know is, well, how many people can you reach and what's in it for me?
Yeah.
And there's so much more competition now, I think, in that arena as well. But then you've moved into classic car jobs, which is very pertinent and important to me because of the many people I've interviewed. Many own shops, and I hear repeatedly, I need people to come work here. And in many cases, those people who love cars go into these shops, and we were talking about Bruce Canepa's shop as one example. I mean, if you love cars, that's a candy store. But
absolutely,
he is the best of the best of the best, and he demands perfections. But finding people that can work on, like we were talking about this morning before we got on the show here, 917 engines, Porsche race cars. Who can work on those? Not too many people. So classic car jobs, you kind of come back around a little bit, but you're helping shops that desperately need help.
If you call some of the top tier shops and you say, hey, can you restore my 912? My dad just left it to me. They'll say, sure. You'll get it back in 6 years.
I know. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah. And it's not because it's going to take them 6 years. It's because they're going to the car is going to sit there and wait in line. I mean, I was recently at a shop that hired someone from Classic Car Jobs, just to get to know them. They showed me they do frame off restoration. They showed me their prep room. It was a warehouse that they had to rent out because of all these frames sitting in primer, because they don't have enough fabrication guys to move them through fast enough.
Yeah, it's pretty phenomenal. And having just come off a car week here and watching sales, and sales were a little bit off in some respects, but in other ways, cars were moving. So the industry's still going and people still want cars. But you're right. I've never had a car restored. I'm not that brave because, it's just like throwing money into a boat, just keep doing it. However, it's a field that a lot of people still want to fulfill their dreams. So how are you putting the talent together with the shops? Is it all relationship building?
So simply put, Classic Car Jobs is a job board, much like Indeed. right?
Ah, okay.
Anyone you can go on, find a job, apply to a job. Anyone can go on, post a job, right? But it's the factor of the community that every shop is vetted and every candidate is vetted. And so while they might only be 18 and, only know how to rebuild Weber carbs and that's kind of all they've ever done, at least you, the person who's putting up the job and they're applying to you, knows that they at least have a passion and a desire to spend the rest of their life working on classics.
Okay.
So the core functionality is not much different than a job board. You can look at an interactive map, see that there's 50 shops hiring in Pennsylvania, see the different types of roles they're hiring for, and apply to them freely. But it's really just the fact that the community is purely focused on classic and exotics.
So you're a bit like LinkedIn, but just for classics and exotics. Is that a fair way to describe
that's
classic car
fair.
jobs?
That's pretty fair. We don't have any social aspect yet, right? But I'd say the biggest thing that's different is so many mechanics, and especially those coming out of tech schools, will send me their resume. And I'll immediately say to them, this is great, okay? I love that you worked at Walmart when you were 17. But here's what we're going to do. You're going to build a mechanic portfolio, and I want you just to dump all the photos of you and your dad swapping engines in your M3. That is going to be infinitely more powerful than the words on your resume, because the shop owner's too busy, and all they want to do is see if you're worth an interview in 5 seconds.
Right.
The aspect of allowing media into a portfolio or a resume has been pretty huge. So that's one additional feature that you would see that's would make it a bit more like LinkedIn and not so much Indeed.
Sure. So you're helping these folks hone in the niche that they want to get into. So they I wouldn't say appear to be, because you don't want to send somebody somewhere that appears to be something that they're not, but so that, again, those people hiring, I worked for years at a company where before we had an HR, because we were a startup and I was there for 20 plus years, but for the first, 5, 6, 7 years, I was a lot of things: marketing, HR, merchandising, running the business. But one of the challenges was finding people. And you get these resumes. Now, this was back in the day. Things are a little bit different now, but maybe not so much so. Even with LinkedIn, you see people all the time looking for work, but then you go and look at how they describe themselves. And sometimes you have to read it 4 times. But what have you done? And is that the key? Do you see for young people or older people changing jobs, for instance? Is it what have you done? Is that really what everybody cares about? The only thing they care about?
It's certainly that, especially because a lot of mechanics who are older don't even maintain a resume. So listing that you have worked on a Porsche 917, very extreme example.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then putting in the skills section, what is that engine? Flat 12 or flat 16?
5.3 liter, 12 cylinder.
Putting in that engine in your skills, and then that becomes a tag on the website, is infinitely more important than just
worked in a race shop,
like a vomit of words onto a resume.
Yeah, exactly. So if a young person, let's say, is trying to get into the business and is listening to this show, one of the biggest problems is I don't have that much experience. But they could be a great potential employee. And I mentioned in the beginning, you're placing people into a lot of different types of roles. One would be there's collectors out there that need people to come and work full time and take care of their cars. And I know plenty of them. They have maybe 25 to hundreds of cars in their collection, and they need somebody to do a lot of different things. I have a good friend that worked in the insurance agency, and she's now working with a high-end collector and manages his collection. And now there's a specialty role because she's not doing mechanical work, but she coordinates to send those cars out to have people do, but she takes care of his stuff. Because he's got too much stuff to deal with. Yeah. He just wants to know, okay, I'm going to go drive my new Maserati on Sunday. Have it ready, right? So do you help people in all these different varieties? Maybe we talk about that. What are all the different categories? Because some people listening may go, well, I don't have the skills to work on a 917 engine.
So right now, the website, about 90% of the jobs are mechanic, hands-on. Shops are looking for people that on day one can come in and help around the shop. Right, in specifically classics. And there's varying degrees of that. There's entry level where you'll be swapping brake pads on Chevelles. You'll be bleeding the brakes. You'll be sometimes sweeping the shop floor. And then there's everything all the way up until people who will be specifically just rebuilding engines in a vacuum sealed chamber in the shop, right? And those guys and girls are most likely 25 to 30 years into their craft. We do have about 10% right now, and it's growing quickly, of sales roles, because you have things like Gateway Classics.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Right,
Okay.
that are looking for specialists. Now, this particular example you're talking about is someone came to the website, signed up, and he right now is the sole manager of an $80 million collection in Connecticut.
Whoa. Okay. Yeah. That's
So
a
this
lot
is
of
exactly what you're
responsibility.
talking about. So he can do everything from, vet shops. Like, let's say he has a Maserati Mexico that's needs very particular work. He knows how to vet shops, talk to the service owner, the service manager, see if they're a good fit. He also can do battery tending himself. He could probably do some work on the car himself. He's all around useful, right, when it comes to things like that. Now, he didn't really know where he wanted to go next, but all he knew he was going to be out of a job because this guy was about to sell his collection. But it turns out that Bonhams had just listed a role on the website for a classic car specialist.
Oh, cool.
So I said to him, who have you been meeting? Because if you know someone who has an $80 million collection, my guess is their friends are exactly the kind of client Bonham wants.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I said to him, you might have the possibility of transitioning into being a classic car specialist, which, I mean, if we're being honest, is a glorified salesperson. Mm-hmm. It's your job to just be there when someone says, oh, I want to sell my Ferrari 250.
Well, or buy a classic car. That's I have many. People have been on the show here that do that for high end, like Bonhams or Gooding or Broad Arrow Group, for example. And some of those guys have come from other fields, but they're very professional, and that's the caliber of people that are buying in that role want to speak to. They don't want, and I'll pick on a pimply faced kid, that doesn't really know anything about a Mexico or this or that. They want somebody who's professional and they expect to be treated a certain way. So that's a highly specialized role. I would even put them way beyond glorified salesperson, because salespeople at your local Dodge dealership, obviously very different than somebody at Broad Arrow or Bonhams or Gooding or Mecum or Barrett Jackson.
Yeah, really. I mean, again, I guess we're going on a tangent here, but really, the car specialist, in my opinion, it would be a dream job if I wasn't currently building this. Because it's your job just to be a face at concourse that, when you see someone, you shake their hand because you know them. Right. And you shake about 1 million hands while you're there.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
It's really just your job to be a socialite in the Concord community.
But you got to know about the cars. That's the other part.
You do. Yeah, because the owners will challenge you. Just because someone has an $80 million collection and too many cars to drive in a day doesn't mean they don't know everything about one particular car in their collection.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, some of the knowledge banks that these gentlemen have. I mean, just take the King of Kings, Jay Leno. Here's a guy that's very busy with his career, still flying around the world doing stand-up, but that guy knows all the intricacies of all of his cars. So all these specialty roles, what are some of the challenges that many of these shops are facing, maybe beyond the obvious, I just can't find people, but maybe the different layers of kind of people that shops are looking for?
Yeah, shops struggle to find people in general. You're correct. Now, there's the unique thing I found that people struggle with is shops actually aren't always looking for someone who's 35 years in on E-types. A lot of shops get very particular, and maybe they did something that they need to change their mindset on, is a lot of them want 8 to 12 years experience so they can mold you into working there for the next 30 years.
Wow.
It's a very specific request. Mm-hmm. And I've heard shops that are top tier, will import cars from Italy, from Southern California, say that the person you sent us is great. They're too experienced because they'll conflict with our culture. Oh. Because they'll want to lead the shop.
Okay.
So if we're talking about very specific challenges, that's one. The other ones, of course, are upholstery, wooden steering wheels, very things that you would, is there's not enough work for this person on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. So there's no one incentivized to join them to specifically do that. And then what do you even pay this person? So there's a million different challenges, but I think you hit the nail on the head that just getting people in who can swap out brakes, put in the LS, take off the panels, day in and day out, the jobs that pay the bills, there's just not enough of them right now. That's 3 to 8 year experience range. Yeah.
How about the colleges like McPherson that are pumping out people that have passion, young people, not a lot of experience, but passion?
Yeah.
Are they a good conduit in some respects for shops? And like I've had people on the show that graduated from there that love upholstery. You mentioned upholstery.
Yeah.
And so forth. And a lot of, and I'm going down two paths here, but I'll plant this in your mind for the next question. And that is, are many shops these days trying to do everything in-house? Because the big ones do. They do pretty much everything they can in-house because they can control. I'll go back to Bruce Canepa as a good example. Does everything in-house that they can do. There might be a couple things they have to get out of California because they don't allow chroming or something like that. But so let's go back to these young people. Is there a conduit for as many young people that want to do it?
So when I speak to people that I'm looking to get advice from, I've spoken to Norman Mayerson, Neil Pitt, the former president of Speed Digital. I've spoken to Ed from VinWiki. And a lot of them, the first thing they say to me is, oh, you should speak to McPherson. And I'd say, like, I get it. I get that. I've spoken to them a little bit. They have 100% placement.
Awesome.
Right? So they don't actually even need me right now.
Interesting.
Because they, I'm not going to you don't want to force something on someone that they don't need. If McPherson has the connections, but the reason they have 100% placement rate is because they've established a connection with Canepa, Paul Russell, and that's where they're going.
Yeah, what a dream job right out of college, right?
Yeah, the cream of the crop gets.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Right, it makes sense. But that leaves a lot of other shops struggling to get the McPherson students.
Yeah.
So I'll leave it at that. Now, I recently gave a talk. I've been making connections with tech schools left and right, and they've started to invite me to give speeches. And nice. I gave a speech recently at a school that I won't say the name of because I'll say some mixed things about their curriculum. And in the talk, I started off with a joke in which I showed a photo of a Pontiac Aztec, a Dodge Caravan, and then some other horrible car. I think a PT Cruiser. No offense. And I asked them, the students, what do these all have in common? And, they said things, and I said, I won't curse on the show. Basically, I used the worst word for the only thing in common with all these is that they're a piece of. Yeah. But I used the worst word.
Okay, thank you.
And then I showed them a photo of a Porsche 356 and an E-Type, and I said, what do these all have in common? They're beautiful, right? But then I asked the students, who here has worked in a car older than the year of 1990? And probably like 70% of the class raised their hand. And it's this girl and her dad, they rebuilt the Chevelle together. Mm-hmm. This kid bought a horrible C4 Corvette and got it running. And I was amazed at I guess I wasn't amazed. I was very much enthused by how many of them had worked on classics and had, a love for classics. And then the other 30% are kids that have Audi S3s that they, tuned the fan to run at a higher RPM so the car cools faster. The problem is that all of these kids don't realize that everything they've done to date, privately or in school, is experience. You bleeding the brakes on your dad's Chevelle is experience. It might not be a lot, but if you go to an interview at a classic car shop, at least now you can say, I know how to bleed the brakes on Mo cars, right? I know how to change brake pads on all 1971 Chevelle. And all of these kids are being funneled to computer diagnostic jobs. Now, there's so many classic car jobs out there, and I show them the map, and they go, oh my God, I never knew. But some of these kids will struggle to find jobs because they'll all, as soon as they graduate, be filtered into either the local Mazda dealership, the local Chevy dealership, or the local Ford dealership. And so now you have a graduating class who all finishes in May at the same time, and they all go to apply to the same 3 dealerships because this school has a connection with those 3 dealerships. And the dealership will take 3 kids that are the best in the class based on the teacher's recommendation. And these other kids will have to go find a job working at some insurance claim kid shop. And it's because they've just never been told that the shop that does, only Mustangs up the street. I mean, there was a shop across the street from this school, and the one kid raised his hand and said, "How can I, get a job working with them? I pass by this shop every day. I love Mustangs." And I said to him, "If you called them right now and said, 'Are you hiring?' 99% of the time they would say yes." And if you just be honest with them and say, "Hey, like I own a 99 Mustang. It's a piece of junk. I've got it running. I've swapped the engine. I've swapped the transmission. I'm willing to sweep the floors," they'll hire you. And in 4 years' time, you'll have enough experience where if you really dedicate yourself, you could actually maybe go work at Paul Russell and do, original Shelby G2 350s. Because if you can dedicate yourself enough and really stand out, and every Mustang that you do, and every time a better Mustang comes in the shop, you say to your service manager, "Hey, can I help out with that car?" So I'm rambling here, but the schools that are not McPherson are funneling. The dealership life just has more influence over these schools. That's basically the single sentence I can give you about my problem with the current setup.
Well, it's a change in mindset and a shift in old ways of doing things and new ways of doing things. And when it really comes back to it, it's about being a great, passionate employee if you're looking for work. Yeah. And knowing how to behave around people, knowing how to communicate is probably the most important thing. And that's one of the challenges many times with younger people. They just haven't been around enough to know how to do that. You've got to be open and willing to try to do that. So are there shops around the country that are so niche that they make their lives even more challenging? Because a lot of the shops and owners I've had on this show, they work on a variety of different cars. You mentioned Paul Russell. There's another fantastic, the best of the best. 10% of the cars on the lawn every year at Pebble are from Paul Russell, maybe more. I don't know. But, So is part of the challenge of finding jobs the way I wouldn't say dealerships, but shops run their business? And is there a way for a shop that keeps having a trouble hiring people, other than looking at themselves saying, what are we doing wrong in the hiring process, of making things easier on themselves by expanding their expertise? Or is niching still important?
Now there are shops, right? Like shops that will do upholstery. Right? We'll say upholstery. Now, that's a very interesting thing because upholstery can do both. They can do RVs. They can do things to, pay the bills, right? And very few shops I've talked to that do like specifics such as upholstery, very few will limit themselves to cars because there's just not enough money in it, right? And there's just not enough of demand, or they don't know how to do the marketing to reach enough of the audience. So those shops, really, it's just like a guy or a girl and like their either significant other or their son or daughter, and that's really it. And if they can get help, they'll find it. But in most cases, they've like given up on trying to find help. I've spoken to them, and it sounds like they'd rather work 60 hours a week than try again to find somebody who can help with specifically leather upholstery in a Porsche 912.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. And it's unfortunate. So I guess what they could do, and what I'm trying to help them do, is they'll write a job description that just says like automotive mechanic needed. And if they would basic marketing concept, if you would change the title of that job description to work on classic Porsches, you would get way more applications.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, you would get way, way more applications.
Sure.
And also you would funnel people in the right direction because at least you'd know, A, they know what a classic Porsche is, and B, they like classic Porsche. And so you might not, you might get someone who they had to redo the bench seats on their Chevy Apache, but at least it's someone who in 3, 4, 5 years could be on the way to being a master upholsterer.
So a lot of this is not just helping the people looking for work. It's helping these companies better seek help, find a better way.
People who come on this site and list jobs, it will be like 2 sentences that says, "Hey, we need a mechanic who can help in our shop with Chevys." And I'll reach out to them, talk about their needs, and then, I'll completely rework their job description to really describe who they want. And it's all toward not doing what Indeed does, which is, let's get your job out there as fast as possible, send you 1 million resumes that are all wrong, and waste your time and give you a bad taste in your mouth for hiring. Mm-hmm. It's trying to focus on quality over quantity, which is exactly how the classic car world likes to be. Unless you bring a trailer, then you do a lot of quantity.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
the repair shops, at least the good ones, prefer to do quality over quantity. So classic car jobs operates the same way.
So while we're on this track, are you seeing that a lot of these shops also need help on the marketing side? Let's just pick on their websites, because sometimes you go and you hear about a shop and you look at their website, and because they haven't given it much attention, you go, ugh. The pictures are dark, they're bad. And if you're somebody seeking to work and you go to that, especially a young person, and we're so used to all the beauty and fluff out there in Instagram and all the pictures and everything's so beautiful, and you see a shop where the guy is trying to take his own pictures and they're not good, all of a sudden your impression of that shop is, well, they're not good either, because they can't even take a great picture, or they haven't even bothered to update their website in 5 years because they're so busy. So is that another part of what your practice helps people? You help, because you mentioned before.
We build every shop that gets a job listing gets a shop profile. So it's actually a much more beautiful way to represent yourself. Just like how some shops will only, you go to their Google listing and their website is just their Facebook, which is fine. It's a pretty actually easy way for them to maintain some sort of presence with all their contact information, put up their projects. So our shop profiles, they do rank on Google. So if someone, not Canapa, but if you typed in maybe a smaller shop in Illinois, and they don't have any web presence, this shop profile would actually, shows a map of their shop. It talks about them and the work that they do, how long they've been up. If they have some socials, it's all linked there. So they actually do offer a bit of more web presence that is personally vetted and checked to make sure it's beautiful for these shops. Yeah, it's like a bit of a side effect that is, a good one. Since Classic Car Jobs has gotten bigger, there's like 173 jobs on the site right now, starting in April. So April was 0 jobs, right? Because you just started a website. Should be able to hit 5,000 people visiting this month starting in April.
Awesome.
With that, I've had to start. The website is still completely free, but I'm beginning to offer a service where I'll help you find.
Okay, like a headhunter service.
Headhunter I think is a strong word, because I'm not in the business of going to a shop and saying, hey, I know a shop that's a mile down the road that'll give you $25,000 more a year. Well, we'll not do that. But I did have recently someone, I won't name the business, it's in New York. They work on Bentleys, and they reached out to me on the site and said, I'm fed up with my manager. I want to continue working on Bentleys. Can you, do you know any shops that are hiring? Mm-hmm. And so this happens to me every hour of every day. And at the same time, I also have shops that come to me and says, hey, I'm looking for a Bentley tech near New York. And so I wouldn't consider that headhunting. I would consider it more of me having a database of guys and girls who are constantly looking for specialty car roles. And I have shops that are constantly looking to hire them. And I'm happy to vet these people for you for a service fee that I think is pretty fair. Yeah.
I always like to ask, before I let you go today, Jeff, I ask about great books. And I'm wondering if there's a great book that you'd like to share that our listeners would glean some great information from.
I'd say most of the books that I read, unfortunately, are like about SEO and boring business stuff.
That's okay. That's important stuff.
But I will fully recommend right now, if you enjoy watching videos, over the past 2 months, Devon Sports Cars Instagram has been all about stories of growing the brand, like racing history. And I've been loving these videos. They had one where Bill Devon, the founder of the company, got banned from Ferrari. And these are the kinds of stories that are being gathered from old materials from the Peterson Museum and released to the public. So if you're like me and you enjoy video, go check out the Devon Sports Cars and look at some of their history. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, very cool. When I used to vintage race, there was a couple guys that were racing Devons. So
can't beat them. They don't weigh enough. They're too light.
Yeah, they kind of remind me of the old Lotuses, the Elites and Alons and things like that. So, and by the way, Kevin Callahan, the managing partner at Devon Sports Cars, was a past guest here on Cars Yeah, show number 1656. Well, before I let you go today, is there anything you could share us with, some words of wisdom or quotes or anything that might help somebody out there either looking for a job or looking for someone to fill a role?
Yeah. I would say the most important thing I can tell anyone, and I have been telling everyone, is especially with mechanics, and I'll focus on them, anything you've done or do counts as experience. Whether you're 21 out of high school or tech school, and you and your dad are swapping engines to build BMW drift cars, or you're 30 years into a Chevy dealership, and on the weekends you're building hot rods, you can work in the classic car industry. They will not pay you flat rate. If a car takes 100 hours, they'll give you the 100 hours to work on it. They'll pay you most likely better. It'll be a better environment for you to work on. And when you're sitting there at the bar on the weekend, some of the cars that you touch might be on the block at NEPA. So it's never too late and it's never too early for someone to get a job in classic cars. And you probably already have the experience without you even knowing it.
There you go. Jeff just opened the door. So you folks out there that are looking for roles, how can people learn more about classic car jobs?
This one's easy. Just go to classiccarjobs.us. If you want to contact me, my email is jeff@classiccarjobs.us. I'm very reachable.
Yep.
I answer every email, whether it be ignore the typos, but I will get back to you. So if you have any questions at all, or you are dying because you can't find someone who can do upholstery on Porsches, I'm more than happy to help you out. Or if you want to work on Porsches for the rest of your life, I'm happy to point you in the right direction.
Awesome. Great. You know, Jeff, what you're doing is really, really super. And anyone who has found a way to have a career in helping others has found the secret sauce to life. So hats off to you for this new venture. I hope those listening out there will check out the website. It'll be listed on Jeff's show notes page, but again, easy to find, classiccarjobs.us. So there you go. Jeff, thanks for coming back on the show, sharing this new venture with me, and for being so generous with your time and expertise. My hat's off to you until you and I talk again. Or if I'm looking for a job as a mechanic, I'll see you down the road. I don't know anybody who'd ever hire me for that, but I can sweep floors pretty good.
Yeah. Okay, amazing. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's ride here at Cars Yeah. Drive on over to carsyeah.com to find show notes and inspiring automotive fun. Download your free copy of Filler Up, a fun book filled with gorgeous photographs of fuel filler fun, including quotes from more inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Download your copy today, and we'll see you next time on Cars Yeah.